Hello, this is Rashad Mitchell. Thanks for listening to the Rashad Mitchell show on Spreaker.com. This is the 14th episode, and I'm going to discuss what took place in the NBA. 3 games that stood out in the NBA. Then I'm going to talk about the book that I've been discussing the last few days, and take it from there. So I'd like to thank those who are listening right now on Spreaker.com, wherever you at, or those who are going to listen later. It's definitely appreciated. I'm going to just give you a knowledgeable, informative talk show tonight. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about the 3 games that stood out this weekend in the NBA. There were 3 games that stood out. Number 1, Golden State and the LA Clippers. Number 2, the yesterday's game in the afternoon, Cleveland played Oklahoma City. That was an interesting marquee matchup. And it was an interesting matchup due to one player's performance that made it an interesting matchup. Detroit Lions against the New Orleans Pelicans. Now we're going to start with Saturday's night's marquee matchup between the Golden State Warriors and the LA Clippers. The Golden State Warriors played on Friday. They got blown out by 32 points behind a great performance by Damian Lillard. He scored 51 points, shot 18 out of 28, I think, from the field. But anyway, the Warriors got blown out and they had to bounce back. And I'm not surprised that they bounced back because they are a great team for a reason. No, they have not lost 2 games in a row yet, which is amazing. So kudos to Golden State. They won on Saturday. They got kind of sloppy. They was up. They won the game 115 to 112. It came down to a final shot, rather. Wilcox from the Clippers almost tried to tie it at 115 with a 3-pointer. But they dominated the game. I mean, they had a big lead for the most part of this game. And they just kind of let down. Draymond Green had another triple-double, 11th triple-double of the year. He was able to just make his presence felt as always. And Klay Thompson had 32 points. Curry was kind of pedestrian. He only had 23 points. But that's the great thing about this team is that they don't need Curry to always dominate all the time. Sometimes it's going to be somebody else that's going to carry the load and able to get things done. And that's what happened on Saturday night, in that performance. So you got to give all the credit that is due to Golden State because, again, it was a tough matchup. Clippers always, for the most part this year, has played Golden State pretty tough. But they've been able to beat them and hold them off. So credit and kudos to Golden State. They did their thing, and so I need to be said about that. They play tonight against the Atlanta Hawks. That's an interesting matchup. But anyway, I'm going to give you more information about this game between Golden State and the Clippers. As far as the recap is concerned, the thing about Golden State that makes them so dangerous is that they shoot well from the field. They shot 51% from the field for the whole game. And then the first half, they shot 56%. 56, and they led by 15 points twice. Draymond Green had, again, 11th triple-double, which currently leads the league. He had 18 points, 11 rebounds, and 10 assists. And again, Klay Thompson had 32 points. Curry had 23. So they now 49-5 as we continue to keep eye on this team. Can they go 72 and 10 or win 73 games and lose only 9. We'll see. As for the Clippers, Uh, Crawford played very well off the bench, 25 points. Chris Paul had 24 points. DeAndre Jordan had 16 points and 21 rebounds. They are 19-6 without Blake Griffin. So, a tough loss, but again, it just goes to show you that when you have a team that can shoot the ball well, that is versatile, quick, and just have that athleticism, it's going to be tough to stop. So far now, the Clippers are 0-3 against the Golden State Warriors. And these games have been nail-biters. I mean, November 4th, Golden State won 112-108. November 19th, Golden State won 124-117. Saturday was a nail-biter, 115-112. It shouldn't have been, but they just, lost focus. So their next matchup is going to be March the 23rd at Golden State. So that's going to be an interesting matchup between those two teams. Possible matchup in the playoffs. I mean, it's a possibility when you look at that. So moving forward, there was another game yesterday afternoon between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. It featured a dominant performance by Cleveland Cavaliers going into a hostile environment and handling their business 115-92. Because at that time, going into that game, usually you don't see Oklahoma City get beat like that with Westbrook and Durant in the lineup, and they definitely did. But what stood out in this game was Kevin Love. Kevin Love had a great basketball game, 29 points, grabbed 11 rebounds, 9 of 18 from the field. He was 11 for 12 from the free throw line. I mean, LeBron James had an all-around game, 25 points, 11 assists, 7 rebounds. Tristan Thompson had 14 points and 14 rebounds. They out-rebounded Oklahoma City 49-39. So kudos to Kevin Love. This probably was his best game, and Cleveland wasn't even 100%. Iman Shumpert didn't play, sprained left shoulder. Mo Williams had a sore left knee in that regard. So they wasn't 100%, but they was able to still make it happen and win. Kevin Durant had 26 points. Russell Wilson had 20 points and 11 assists and 9 rebounds. But this was their most lopsided defeat of the season. And it was their second straight loss at home coming out of the All-Star break. So this is not good for a team like Oklahoma City. They want to contend for a championship, let alone contend in the Western Conference playoffs. So that's the story on that. And then the last game that I wanted to look at was a game between the New Orleans Pelicans, and the Detroit Pistons, where Anthony Davis scored a career high and a season high 59 points. He grabbed 59. He grabbed 20 rebounds to go with his 59 points, as the Pelicans won 111-106. So this was a great performance, and plus this was a close game. So the points that he scored was definitely needed, because in that situation, 59 points and 20 rebounds was definitely needed. Davis had an outstanding game. He was 24 out of 34 from the floor. He made 2 3-pointers. He added 9 free throws to his 10 attempts. So he was very consistent and excellent at the free throw line. He scored 19 points in the fourth quarter, which broke the scoring record for the Palace of Auburn Hills that was set by LeBron James in 2007, when he scored 48 points in the Eastern Conference Finals. Also, he put himself in rare company. Davis became the third player next to Shaquille O'Neal and Chris Webber to score 50 points and grab 20 rebounds in a game since 1983. So in that regard, that's an impressive feat, to be only the third player to do that. And the Pelicans got a big victory on the road. I mean, you got to tip your cap. Self-explanatory. When you score 59 points and grab 20 rebounds, you're definitely a dominant force in the basketball game, and you got to give all the credit in the world to Anthony Davis for doing his thing. So that's my recap of the NBA marquee games for the weekend. The 3 games that I felt were something that I had to discuss on the Rashad Mitchell show. And I'm your host, Rashad. My show is going to be on from 5 o'clock to approximately 5:45 on a regular basis. Like I said, unfortunately, I had to redo the show because I did not turn the mic off. But anyway, it's after 6 o'clock right now, so it's not in my nature to do the show like this. But because of my error, I wasn't able to turn the mic off when I did my sound effects and all that, and whatever I had to do with that, and the music a little bit in the background. But anyway, it is what it is. I mean, I'm back to redo the show, redo the broadcast, because I usually do it at 5 o'clock, but I had to do it after 6 o'clock because of my minor error with the not turning off the mic and speaking through the mic. I didn't turn it off. I think I turned it on. Whatever it is, whatever issues, it just didn't work out. So I'm redoing the show again. And that's not a problem. Mistakes happen. But moving along, I just finished discussing the 3 NBA marquee games of the weekend. Now I'm going to continue to discuss this book that Steve Silverman wrote called "Who's Better, Who's Best in Football?" The top 60 NFL players of the past 60 years. And resume with number 34, Emmitt Smith. Now, his career is self-explanatory. He was drafted in 1990 as the 17th pick overall in the first round. What the Cowboys did is they traded up with the Pittsburgh Steelers to draft him. And then the rest is history. Smith had a great rookie season. He won Rookie of the Year for the AP, Associated Press, 937 yards and 11 rushing touchdowns as a rookie. Then he just continues to blossom as a running back. He led the league in rushing in 1991 with 1,563 yards and 12 touchdowns. And he continued to dominate as the Cowboys became a dynasty, winning 3 out of 4 Super Bowls. He ran for 1,713 yards and 18 touchdowns in 1992. In 93, despite holding out, he rushed for 1,486 yards in 1993. He won league MVP as well as Super Bowl MVP. In 1994, he ran for 1,484 yards, and he ran for an amazing 1,773 yards in 1994 when the Cowboys won the Super Bowl. And during that span, he ran for 46 rushing touchdowns. So he was part of a great dominant ground game. But at the same time, when you look at Emmitt Smith, he played behind arguably the greatest offensive line ever to play. I mean, you have Nate Newton, you got Eric Williams, you got Larry Allen, Mark Stepnoski, Mark Tuinei. I mean, guys like that when you look at the offensive line that he played behind, you're going to look good. Now, again, Emmitt Smith was a great, back. He was a complete back. He could block, he could catch, he could run it. He was that great blending back than given credit for. He was that guy that can blend in as a running back and make plays, whether it's blocking, catching, running. He did it all. So Emmitt Smith became the all-time leading rusher with 18,355 yards. He carried the ball 4,409 times, 4,924 touches, and he scored 164 career rushing touchdowns. In total, he had 175 total touchdowns, and total yards from scrimmage, he had 21,579 total yards from scrimmage. So, Smith had a great career. He was a great, player. He ran the ball very, very well, and I think that's what made him great, is the ability to do a lot of things as a running back. And so career speaks for itself. Next, Randy Moss, a guy who, again, definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame. But the thing about Randy Moss, he had 3 different facets of his career that that showed his level of interest. 3 phases of his career, rather. He wanted to play in the first 6 years of his career with the Vikings. He averaged 87.5 catches for 1,395.8 yards and 12.8 touchdowns per season. He didn't want to play in his final season in Minnesota or in the 2 years he spent with the Oakland Raiders. He averaged only 50.3 catches for 775 yards and 8 touchdowns during those 3 seasons. And also in his first 2 seasons as a Patriot, he averaged 83.5 catches for 1,250.5 yards and 17 touchdowns. A 6-time Pro Bowler, a 4-time first-team All-Pro selection. So, again, he was just an explosive receiver, but he didn't always do it all the time. His best season as a receiver for his touchdowns was concerned was in 2007, where he scored 23 receiving touchdowns as New England Patriot when they went to the Super Bowl in 2007, but they eventually lost to the New York Giants. But Moss was the second most dominant receiver the game has ever seen since the merger of the NFL in 1970, when the AFL merged with the NFL, next to Jerry Rice. But Jerry Rice never took a play off. He always played hard every single game, every single down. The problem with Moss is that he didn't bring it every single time. And here's a chart of Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, and Terrell Owens in terms of what they did for 5. They had their 5 best yardage seasons included on this list. Now, Jerry Rice's best year was in his 11th season when he caught 122 passes for 1,848 yards and 15 touchdowns. In 1986, he caught 86 passes for 1,570 yards and 15 touchdowns. In 1993, he caught 98 passes for 1,503 yards and 15 touchdowns. In 1990, he caught 100 passes for 1,502 yards and 13 touchdowns. In 1994, he caught 112 passes for 1,499 yards and 13 touchdowns. Terrell Owens, his 5 best seasons included 97 receptions for 1,451 yards and 13 touchdowns in the 2000 year. In 2001, he caught 93 passes for 1,412 yards and 16 touchdowns. In 2007, 81 catches was made for 1,355 receiving yards and 15 touchdowns. 2002, Owens caught 100 passes for 1,300 touchdowns and he caught 100 passes for 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns. 2004, he caught 77 passes for 1,200 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns. So Randy Moss, here's his 5 best yardage seasons. In 2003, he caught 111 receiving yards for 1,632 receiving yards and 17 touchdowns. In 2007, he caught 98 passes for 1,493 yards receiving and 23 touchdowns. In 2000, he caught 77 passes for 1,437 receiving yards and 15 touchdowns. In 1999, he caught 80 passes for 1,413 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns. And finally, 2002, he caught 106 passes for 1,347 yards and 7 touchdowns. So these were the 5 best yard seasons between Rice, Moss, and Owens. And I think what Steve Silverman was trying to do is compare these receivers to each other in terms of their success as, receivers, their best seasons. And he picked out 5 seasons that stood out for them. So that's number 33, Randy Moss. Next is Willie Davis. Willie Davis played with the Green Bay Packers. He was the most important member of the Green Bay Packers defensive line. But the interesting thing about Willie Davis, who's at number 32 in Steve Silverman's book, he was drafted by the Cleveland Browns in 1956. But he was traded to the Green Bay Packers in 1960. But Davis did not like being traded to Green Bay because at that time in the 60s that Green Bay was not an easy place to live for a black player. So he wanted to quit football and go into the business world. And Lombardi had to talk him out of it. And he was able to do that. He felt that he could play defensive end for the Packers because he had 3 attributes: speed, agility, and size. And he felt that he can do that because of the attributes that he had to become a defensive lineman all-time great. And he was that. So he had all 3 put together to be a great dominant performer for the Packers. A relentless pass rusher, was dominant against the run. This guy did it all. I mean, this guy was part of some great defenses, especially in 1961. They had the number 2 defense in the league. They finished no worse than second in defense in the league for the next 6 seasons. So they had a great defense, especially in 1966. They finished with only allowing 163 points and only allowing 1,959 yards allowed in the passing yards category. And they only surrendered 7 touchdown passes against 28 interceptions. So this defense was remarkable. And overall, he was an All-Pro 5 times and earned a spot in the Hall of Fame in 1981. So that's Willie Davis for you. Next at number 31 is Kellen Winslow, who revolutionized the tight end position when he came on the scene in 1979. Kellen Winslow was one of the first great athletes to play the tight end position, and he definitely flourished under the coach Don Coryell in San Diego as a single San Diego Charger. He had that athletic ability, man. Kellen Winslow was just another guy from another planet. His best performance in his career was in the 1981 NFL divisional playoff game against the Miami Dolphins, where the Chargers won 41-38. Kellen Winslow caught 13 passes for 166 yards, including blocking a field goal attempt with 4 seconds remaining. And there was always going to be an image of Winslow being carried off the field because he had cramped up after the game because the high humidity that was on display in Miami at the Orange Bowl. So that was his most memorable performance. And Winslow was the first tight end to put wide receiver type numbers together during a whole season. So in 1979, he had injuries that kept him from being what he needed to be. Caught 25 passes, but he kept going. Had a great season in 1980. Caught 89 passes for 1,290 yards and 9 touchdowns. He was unstoppable. He was part of a high-powered offense in 1980. It was Eric Coryell at the time because you had Kellen Winslow, John Jefferson, Charlie Joyner, and Dan Fouts. He was a game-changing player because no tight end had ever caught the ball more than 75 times in a season before Winslow came along, and Winslow caught 88 passes or more in 3 seasons out of 4 beginning in 1980. So this guy set the template for the tight end position. I mean, when you see guys today like Rob Gronkowski and Jimmy Graham and Antonio Gates, this guy did it first. When you look at the stuff that he accomplished as a player, it's in another atmosphere, another stratosphere, because nobody wasn't at the tight end position was making these kind of plays like Kellen Winslow, and he definitely showed that. So yes, Mike Ditka and John Mackey set the standard at the tight end position in the 60s, but when Winslow came, he revolutionized the tight end position. Mackey and Ditka defined the position, they redefined it, but Winslow revolutionized it. Because it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have like a Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, Shannon Sharp. I mean, the list goes on and on. This guy was definitely a playmaker. So that's number 31 for Kellen Winslow. Number 30, Merlin Olsen. He was known for being in Little House on the Prairie and Father Murphy, doing stuff on TV. He was an analyst as well, but he was a huge piece and a great part of the legendary fearsome foursome defense for the Los Angeles Rams that was led by Deacon Jones, followed by Merlin Olsen, Rosie Greer, Lamar Lundy. But Olsen was no slouch. He was just as good as a Deacon Jones. He was one of the most consistent players the game had ever seen. He played 14 straight seasons in the Pro Bowl from 1962 to 1975. He had dominant strength and quickness on all NFL team, first and second team 10 times. He wanted to get better every single year. He knew how to diagnose plays from the other huddle, and he just knew how to just figure things out to make a play. And he knew how to be prepared because his mental game aspect stood out. That was his primary domain in terms of getting after the passer. He had 94 unofficial sacks in his 14-year career. He always took to heart the seriousness of not making sure that he would be prepared all the time, because when you look at it, he even mentioned a quote, "One of life's most painful moments comes when we must admit that we didn't do our homework, that we are not prepared." He always was prepared as a player for the Rams. So Merlin Olsen at number 30. At number 29, Forrest Gregg. Forrest Gregg was a great offensive lineman. Matter of fact, Vince Lombardi's most finest player that he ever coached. And look who he had coached in his career for the Packers. Vince Lombardi coached Bart Starr, Willie Davis, Jim Taylor, Ray Nitschke, Willie Wood. But he felt that Forrest Gregg was the finest player he ever coached. And the reason why he had a soft spot for Forrest Gregg, because Lombardi was an offensive lineman at Fordham University. And he had a soft heart for undersized offensive linemen. Gregg was 6'4", weighed 249 pounds. He had the ability to keep pass rushers at bay. He had the quickest feet of any offensive lineman of his time. He had that tenacity. And he was able to just do his thing. You know what I'm saying? That's what made him a great offensive lineman. A dominant blocker at the tackle position, making waves, making holes for Hornung and Taylor, Paul Hornung and Jim Taylor, a 5-time champion. Just did his job, dealing with guys like Gino Marchetti and Deacon Jones. Then with those two guys, he was able to hold his own against those guys. They was great at running that power sweep, and Forrest was part of that, major part of that. He was a technician. He didn't care about attention. He didn't care about glory. He didn't care about the limelight. He just did his job on an every game basis. He was a technician who peaked at the right time. That's why he had 5 championship rings, and that's the story on Forrest Gregg. Next, Ken Houston. Now, Ken Houston is a very underrated football player. He started his professional career as a football player as a safety when the AFL had the passing game at its peak, at its zenith. You had great coaches like Sid Gilman, Al Davis doing his thing in Oakland, Weave Eubank and Hank Stram. You had great quarterbacks like Joe Namath, Flynn Dawson, Darryl LaMonica, John Hadle. But you had to have a defensive back to deal with those kind of quarterbacks in the passing game that was going on in the AFL that was commonplace. Because the defensive back position, you had to have the athletic ability, the intelligence, the playmaking skills. The Oakland Raiders had their Willie Brown. The Chiefs had Johnny Robinson. The Houston Oilers had Kenny Houston. So Houston was a 6'3", 198 pounds. Player. He had all the physical gifts to be a tremendous safety. He had a long stride to go with his speed and agility. He was that ideal player to play past defense, and he was strong enough as a defensive tackler. Who was devastating as a tackler. He played in 2 All-Star games, played in 10 Pro Bowls over a 12-year stretch from 1968 to 1979. He retired following the 1980 season, and he was recognized as the premier strong safety of his era. In 1994, he was a member of the NFL's 75th anniversary team. He intercepted 49 passes. He returned those 49 passes for 898 yards. He had 21 fumble recoveries and scored 12 touchdowns, 9 on interceptions, 1 on each on a punt return, a fumble return, and a blocked field goal return. And the impressive thing about this Ken Houston is that he played in college at Prairie View A&M. He was a 9th round pick. So in the early season game against the Jets, he scored 2 touchdowns by returning a blocked field goal, 71 yards. A Joe Namath interception, 43 yards. Both plays were very instrumental because it allowed the Oilers to come away with a 28-28 tie. Houston was anything but a shy rookie because he was not intimidated by playing against the league's glamour team in America's biggest city, which is New York at the time. Ken Houston was a hidden gem in the AFL. He was dominant with his ability to play from sideline to sideline. Had a remarkable season with the Oilers in 1971. Had 9 interceptions and returned 4 for touchdowns to lead the league in that department. He also forced 2 fumbles, recovered 2 fumbles, and returned one of them for a touchdown. The Oilers only won 4 games that season, and Houston's interceptions played a key role in 3 of them. Houston remained industry secret until the Oilers traded him to the Washington Redskins in 1973 for 5 veterans. Once he arrived in Washington, Houston became a mainstay in the Redskins over-the-hill game. And he became a favorite player of coach at the time, George Allen. Allen was impressed with Houston's knowledge of the football field and the fact that he was always in the right position to make a play. Houston was very excellent in every aspect of the game for the Redskins. He did not make mistakes. And even Allen, in an interview in 1983, said that you could see he was just an outstanding defensive back. Every step on the field, he took one with a purpose. That's why he was such a big part of what we were doing with the Redskins. When you get a player who can do exactly what his coaches are talking about, that's extremely valuable. It shows the other players what has to be done, and it's a much more effective way than a coach using words. It's the best example for other veteran players who understand. The 1973 Redskins were a team that was on the verge of exploding, and Houston came to the Redskins in 1973. He was traded to them, and lo and behold, he made perhaps the most pivotal play during that season that will have them win 10 games and have a spot in the NFC playoffs. In a game against the Cowboys on October 8th, 1973, Washington was leading 14-7 with 16 seconds left. And Dallas had the ball in a 4th and goal situation. When Cowboys